Welcome to Interurban Art House's digital series, Art House at Your House.
Now you can experience our classes and events for free in the comfort of your own home.
In celebration of National Poetry Month, this installment is a recording of a live performance by Kansas Poet Laureate Huascar Medina.
So I recently completed my second book of poetry. What an exciting time for me personally. It was a hard collection for me because I was trying to write about some real things. I had asked myself some really hard questions. The title of the book is Un Mango Grows in Kansas. It's Spanglish. I speak Spanglish, or Spanglish, however you want to say it. I don't speak English well. I don't speak Spanish well. I speak poetry pretty well, though. I do. I believe that. The work took a couple years to write. Some of the poems, the first poem I'll be reading, I began writing that on a Greyhound bus on my trip to Topeka, Kansas. I mean, that was 18 years ago, 18 and a half years ago, so about half a life ago. So it's interesting that I wrote this initial poem on a Greyhound bus on my trip up here, and that is included in this collection. I mean, granted, I've had to work to it, but let's get started here. I would like to give a super big thanks to Humanities Kansas for allowing me to do things like this, to share poetry, and Interurban Art House for having me and be a part of their poetry series. It's very humbling. There's so many talented poets in Kansas City, I'm telling you. I go up there a lot, and I'm always blown away. So thank you for including me in this group. So I'm going to begin with the first page, and I dedicated this work to my parents. You came a long way to bring me here. We are so far away from your homes. I hope our ancestors remember me. I'll be reading work mostly in English, some in Spanish. The Spanish work was translated by Julia Sellers. She teaches out in Benedictine College as well, just like Filiberto Hernandez. And I chose her because we've shared poetry together for a while, so she has a sense of how I write and my voice and the gentleness I try to approach my work with. So I do want to read some thank yous before we get started here. Thank you, Jeanette Powers. She edited my work. For your eye and heart. You treat my poems like unborn children waiting to be heard. You are a magnificent midwife. I'd like to thank Julia Sellers for your translations. I trust you above most. And I'd also like to thank Cal Louise Phoenix for always being my poetic partner. I love this girl to death. We've been writing together for, wow, I can say it, over a decade now. I mean, I'm feeling old today, man. It's okay. Age is a beautiful thing. It's a blessing to be able to live. So I'd also like to thank Ariso de Famania for your long belief. That's my mother. That part where I say your long belief, I took from Paul Laurence Dunbar, beautiful poet. Your unconditional love, support, and sacrifice has helped mold me. Thank you for allowing me to fail. I am forever grateful. And I'd like to thank Oshita, Chispa, and Brozilla, my brother. You guys keep me grounded. And I'd like to thank the La Resistencia Poetry Group. I cannot ask for a better poetic family. I admire your voice, passion, and talents. You inspire and challenge me. Te amo. Not te quiero, te amo. Jessica Ayala, MG Salazar, Miguel Morales, Alex Martinez, and Lucky Garcia. And to Jose Faust, I'm always in all of you. I hope you're proud of me, hermano. I am so proud of you and the work you continue to do. You always surprise me. Quiero cantar. Lelolai, lelolei, lelolai, lelolei. Arriving in Kansas. I hear the melodies of meadowlarks in the hinges of a swinging door. Doors that lead to tall gray steps climbed in stages towards a window seat, the only chair without a safety belt. Charcoal black turns clockwise, tugging towards anything other than before. A pull of freedom sensed as progress, a fetish for forward motion, romanticized in our devotion to time, submission to time, religion of time. Our pocket dictators tapping through glass, fearful of time elapsed, infinite ellipsis. It wasn't the dusk or sky emanating through cracked glass of the Greyhound bus that awakened me. Not the hum of rubber to asphalt from soft new wheels in ecstasy with the heat of friction. There's a river god on wheels who presses the gas pedal, taking me to a new type of prison. Section 2. It was always the little things. Chirping from a single circling doorman 611-303 lug nut, natural, steel, that whistles when we break because a mechanic was too busy to tighten it up or too distracted by the world to care enough about the safety of those who travel together. But I have traveled alone, always alone, on buses, in taxis, trains, and planes, my ticket pocket placed in a blazer, the kind we are expected to wear at our wake, a constant reminder that the only destination worth traveling to is in ourself, and no one can come with us in the end. Life's the longest Midwest goodbye, dying a ceremony we are forced to pay for after the gone are long gone and along their way to the last stop, after off-ramps truly become one-ways. No turnarounds, no detours, all stop and black tops to macabre to acknowledge daily our journey exiting. 3. The sound of breaking. I pull a ticket stub from my pocket, glance at my watch. We were never on time. I read my receipt, itinerary, city, arrival, layover, departure. Arriving in Kansas was such a culture shock for me. I was living in San Antonio at the time. I was living with my aunt. So I left the city to come to Topeka. And even when I reached Topeka on the Greyhound bus, I still had to drive out to Holden, Kansas, where my mother was living. So I went further out into, not quite frontier country, but it's country enough for me to be concerned where I was at. And I had a feeling of being lost. So this collection is really me trying to find home, find where that's at. I recently was listening to a Richard Blanco presentation of poetry. I think it's called Aspen Words. I might be wrong with that. And he said something that really stuck with me because he's always investigating what identity means to him. He's a first generation Cuban in the United States. He's queer. He's also an engineer. The engineer part I don't understand. The other two are okay with me. So shout out to engineers, my best friends once. So no disrespect. But he said something that really stuck with me. He said, poems are mirrors. We're just looking into ourselves each time we write a poem. And this collection is that. It's me asking myself really difficult questions. This next poem is entitled Spanish Knotted Feather Stitching. An earlier version of this poem appeared in my first collection, How to Hang the Moon, through Spartan Press. And this collection is also through Spartan Press. Shout out to Jason Reberg. Jason Reberg has put up with me and my neurosis for years, and he's been patient waiting on this book to come out. But so much has been happening lately, and I kept feeling like I needed to add more poems to the work. I felt like now was the time for this to come out. This poem's entitled Spanish Knotted Feather Stitching. Only Neruda can save us. I've written him pleas for guidance, addressed it to the waning crystal moon on that red branch of the now gone autumn in his window. They're cinched with threads to palomas who refuse to wear the satchels my abuelita knitted through manos anudado before her passing. Las palomas argued for practicality, balancing against my need for sentimentality. That added weight of things makes flight onerous, they'd say. How I wish these birds were more passenger pigeon, less dove, willing to fight through wind and rain to get there, okay with war and loss. I've even taught them to fly in cursive, in case it didn't make it, so others may see the phrases passing by before they're shot down. But very few people see the need for soft, round words, free and flowing in the air, their grace appearing indecisive, almost lost from below. How they've pitied them, poor palomas. I beg of you, please take these notes to his shores, sing towards the sill in his view, be candid, have manners, wipe the sand from your feet before entering, bathe in his café. Perch yourself upon his fingerpiece. I just have to know. Can a song of despair come before a love poem? So I wrote this work, and some words are in Spanish, words that I know, words that I'm comfortable with. You know, when you move to a new country, you assimilate. And assimilation involves sometimes removing yourself, distancing yourself from your mother tongue. I came to the conclusion that Spanish may not have been my mother tongue. You know, my father's Puerto Rican, so he's Taíno. So I started looking at the language, and it spoke to me. So I'll be sharing some words in this poem that are Taíno. At the Bay is the creator of all things to the Taínos. Words to know is coqui, it's a frog from Puerto Rico. Another word that you should probably concern yourself with is madre, which is mother, if you're not sure what that means. So this poem is entitled Por favor, please. Toa, mother, madre, Atabe, please come home. Take me to the beach sands infinite, blanketing us with abandoned time. These men are monsters, they are not gods, why do you hide? Toa, mother, madre, Atabe, please come home. I'll perish if I leave, turn frog for crying, coqui, coqui. I will not stay without you. This has not been home. These men are monsters. They are not gods. Please don't leave us all behind. Toa, mother, madre, Atabe, please come home. These men are monsters. They are not gods. Save me, from us. There's an old story that involves frogs that exists long before, the story of coquis leaving the island of Puerto Rico, and they would perish if they left the island. This is a story they tell on the island of Puerto Rico. There's an older version of that story that involves children that were removed from their mothers, and if they cried without their mothers present, they would be turned into frogs. I feel there's a correlation between those stories, one that is Puerto Rican and the other that's Taíno. And I believe it adds to some of the reasons why we don't leave the island. Some of my family still lives there or returns there because it is home, it is safe, it feels secure. But that's something that I brought into question as well while writing this work. The next poem I'm going to share, I'm going to try to share Por favor in Spanish. Let's do that today. I'm feeling a little froggy. How about that for a pun? Toa, mamá, madre, átame, por favor, ven a casa. Llévame a las arenas infinitas de la playa, comprendiéndonos con el tiempo abandonado. Estos hombres son unos monstruos, no son dioses. ¿Por qué te escondes? Toa, mamá, madre, átame. Por favor, ven a casa. Parezco si me voy hecho rana por llorar. Coquí. No me quedo sin ti. Este lugar no es mi tierra. Esos hombres son unos monstruos. No son dioses. Por favor, no nos dejas atrás a todos. Toa, mamá, madre, átame. Por favor, ven a casa. Esos hombres son unos monstruos. No son dioses. Sálvame de mí, de nosotros. This poem deals a little bit with the idea of Spaniards coming to our country, colonizers. How far back, have some of our spirits been oppressed? What language is the language of our spirit? Is what I'm exploring in this poem. The next poem I'm going to share with you is Mi Isla. This is a poem I love. I reference my father in here. I also reference El Yunque, which is the rainforest in Puerto Rico. Words to know is Un brindis por ti, papá. That means a toast for you. Parrandas is Christmas caroling in Puerto Rico. Jibaros are peasant farmers in Puerto Rico. My family are descendants of peasant farmers. We work the land, descendants of slaves in the plantations. That's the reality of some of my ancestry. So those are words that I'd like you to remember in this poem. It's interesting. The word jibaros is peasant farmer. I believe sometimes, because it has such a negative connotation, right? That we think of farmers the same way here in the Midwest. That they're simple, that they're uneducated, that they're not equal. But I assure you that farmers in the Midwest are as equal to the United States as jibaros are in Puerto Rico. They share some of the same troubles. Mi Isla was published in the Latino Book Review. Shout out to Joe de Padilla. He's the editor-in-chief at the Latino Book Review. If you have time, check it out. Go to Latino Book Review. Their first 2 issues are available free for download right now. The guy's a superstar, and I look forward for the work he's going to do in the future. So, Mi Isla. I ate a mango today. It was mostly green with reds and yellows. El Yunque at dawn is mostly green with reds and yellows. My homeland's enchanted, full of shady jungle mountains, gawking naked beaches, slowly necking ocean. There, sea breezes woo the palm trees, and peeping coconuts faint from holding on too long and stand asleep, daydreaming of me. Tonight, un brindis por ti, papá. Let us pretend the crickets are drunken coquis de parranda, struggling with loss, singing in the wrong key, playing out of tune, unable to find their way home. Let us pretend we are surrounded by vacation, not work, that all this wheat is beach, that the above blue is ocean. Let us pretend you are watching me, ripe in a hammock's womb, strung to horizons with no ocean or beach sand near nor fear, that I've become landlocked here, surrounded by jibaros who don't like jibaros. Still an island. This next poem, my sister's always talking about going back to Puerto Rico. And, I always wonder where she's going to go. So I went to TripAdvisor. And I've never been on TripAdvisor before. And I found this question. It was, when is mango season in Puerto Rico? A TripAdvisor question from Jack. It's the title of the poem. And the response came from the island of Vieques, which is a small island off of Puerto Rico. I was very embarrassed to know that the island of Vieques has a TripAdvisor account, and it was my first time on TripAdvisor. So this is the response on May 9th, 2008. Response number 3 of 11 from Vieques. Somewhere in Vieques, there's always a tree with fruit. We just need local knowledge. I have yet to see a mango tree in Kansas. I buy my fruit in a Whole Foods store. Most things here are from elsewhere. Even my jam travels into town. Do you know they grow a type of heaven in an orchard in a place called Santa Cruz? A mango spread, non-GMO, organic, 40 calories per tablespoon. It smells fleshy, like roadside mangoes, dropped from a tree, too ripe to grow, too old to save. There was a summer in Yabucoa where the street side, parking lots, and driveways were paved in mangoes. We ate mango-flavored everything that summer. The taste of mangoes will make your eyes close. I ate my first gusano that July. I didn't mind. I never saw it. It was still bliss. Fruit flies are angels, born in their own kind of heaven. The next poem I'm going to share is called La Humedad. The climate, the humidity in the air. A lot of my close friends are undocumented or DACA recipients at the moment. The struggles that they deal with on a day-to-day basis is very difficult. The tension is always in the air everywhere you go. And this poem is about that. I reference the Chesterfield, is where I wrote this poem. We would go out to Kansas City and dance at the Chesterfield. And it was the only time we ever felt like we were even close to being home because everyone was speaking Spanish and we were dancing salsa and merengue and music was right, the vibe was right, and it was a place that felt like an oasis for us, So this poem is entitled La Humedad. At 1400 Main Street, I asked for una Cuba libre, sin hielo, un Puerto Rico rico, otro Nuevo México, otro Venezuela paz, en Guatemala paz, en Panamá, y un Salvador para El Salvador, y algo diferente para Argentina. Within the Chesterfield, I dance con música alegre, merengue, bachata y salsa. Acá bailamos to the rhythm of the son clave. En la humedad, en esta 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 humedad. Because sitting, wishing, and waiting would be hopeless in the climate we can't breathe in. En esta humedad, en esta humedad, en esta humedad, en esta humedad, en esta humedad. Y el clima puede afectar su dolor, but I won't suffer silently. Tears be down my brow, cries come out in song, and worry turns and dips as we protest and dance with hand in hand. La humedad, en esta 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 humedad. Take a sip of my lemonade. The next poem I'm going to read was originally published in the Kanza Poetry Project presents Somewhere Between Kansas and Denver. The poem's entitled New American. I thought hard about this poem for quite a while. And I've come to some realizations in myself is that either none of us are immigrants because there are no borders, or we all are immigrants if we're not indigenous to the land. But there's another aspect of this I had to confront as well, that there are people who were brought here, who were enslaved, which is part of also the descendants in my family, who didn't ask to be here, who were forced to be here. And they're not immigrants either. So I decided that I'm going to call myself a New American because the term immigrant has been villainized. It has negative connotations now. It's a buzzword, for political pundits now on the news media. And I want to change that if I can, even if it's just one person at a time. This poem's entitled New American. Don't call me immigrant. I'm the new American, striving in new America as a new American. I am not your invader, not an animal nor criminal. I am a just person, just striving in a new America. In new America, I'm a full-time student, overtime worker, volunteering in my free time, if I plan enough ahead for free time, if I can even afford the free time, if my free time is approved. I work hard in New America, third shift warehouse, second shift my house, always on call, no days off, freelance for life, 4 jobs a week, blue and white collar. Don't call me immigrant. I am the New American, surviving in New America as a New American. I am not your invader, not an animal, no criminal. I am a just person, just surviving in a New America. This is New America. Student loans for all, high rent, higher utilities, low pay, rising healthcare costs, the cost of living deadly, no living wage, living in rage, because my cousins are encaged for wanting to live in a safer part of New America. Don't call me immigrant. I'm the New American, living in New America as a New American. I am not your invader, not an animal, no criminal. I am a just person, just living in a New America, strong and proud, able to withstand the distance I have traveled, the distance from my family, the distance between us, the distance of our dialects, the distance in our churches, the distance in our homes, the distance between my ancestors and my grandchildren, the distance from the streets to the dorm rooms, the distance from the field to the corner office suite. Don't call me immigrant. I'm the New American, dreaming of New America as a New American. I am not your invader, not an animal nor criminal. I'm a just person, just dreaming of a new America. Old America, don't be afraid. We are all America, North America, Central America, South America. We are all Americans. We all strive in Americas. We all survive in Americas. We all live in Americas. They are all the same America. We all dream of a greater America. I want you to be paid a living wage, live in affordable housing without college debt or medical debt or credit card debt or national debt. I want no more racism. I'm speaking of a new America. I'm part of New America, whether you like it or not. So join me, please. The next poem I'm going to share is Surrogate City. I said earlier that when I first moved to Topeka, was a culture shock. I came from San Antonio, busy city, buzzing all the time, and I was homesick. I would go to Kansas City on a regular basis. And this poem came from that. It was a letter I wrote back to San Antonio. It's called Surrogate City. Mamá, estoy bien. Mother KC has adopted me. She too wears iron garments of concrete and glass, winks at me to cross the streets, reminds me I'm cared for with sirens in the air. She hums a highway lullaby of old Basel Puente, so I may pass the nights. Skylines don't resemble mi vieja ansiedad in peace. She embraces your sun, the sun, el sol, my soul. Mother, KC has been good to me. For those who don't know this, those who know me well, I love Frida Kahlo. This poem is for Frida Kahlo. Diego Rivera, man, I can't stand the dude. If you have ever been in a toxic relationship, please reach out to your friends. It's not worth it. It's not worth the art that's coming out of it. I believe she had a long life ahead of her, and I believe he's part of the reason her life was not as long. So this poem is called She's Not Your Calla Lily. I think her bones would blush if I dug them out of a grave with a thimble taken from a sewing room in the basement of a nunnery, filled with Mother Teresa posters. Her Espiritu Santa, marveling at my persistence to unbury her, my desire to cleanse and wipe away sacrilege. She would find my toil in the earth picturesque, romantic, or disturbing, another Alexandre Hogue, infertile, barren, and scarred, a sill with view of dreams abandoned. But the truth is, she's not buried here. The fire took her. Sons of El Sol. This has troubled me. She has become knickknackery, painted pottery, an object in Diego's home. Outside La Casa Azul, a tourist mocks me for digging. Loco, just go inside and see her. My reply. But I want to touch her, hermano. If her body could not withstand her passions, what makes you think an urn could contain her ashes? She is out here, in the yard, waiting to be resurrected, a seed of cacao. For a moment, he stood there in shame, not wanting to get his hands dirty, then walked away as I continued to scrape the earth with the persistence of an ox. I could tell the stranger had little to no respect for obsession, eternal love, or superfluous suffering, unable to martyr for what he believed in, a candle with no wick. He did not believe in love. He did not believe in her. As he left, I yelled, I know who you are, Merid. Shame on you, Capsid. Shame on you, Diego. Shame on you. Shame on you. Shortly after, I was escorted from the lawn with the rock doves cuckooing, their laughter too late to warn me, or maybe a bit more mockery. It seems nature can be cruel to us all. My mother is from Panama. Ruben Blades is from Panama. I love Ruben Blades' music, great folk singer, one of my favorite artists in music. And he had a song called Pablo Pueblo my mother would play on vinyl constantly all the time growing up. And it's just, I think about it, and that the song is still true to this day. Things don't change for some of us. So I wrote this poem for Ruben Blades, but I also reference the book American Dirt and how pointless it is for someone else to write about the things we go through, to appropriate our trauma that way. So this poem is called They Can't Sing It Like Us, for Ruben Blades. 1. Pablo Pueblo III has always been quiet when going to and from work. They are tired of always rushing, constantly chased by unseen shadows and unknown places. Pablo Pueblo el Tercero dances through darkness between the streetlights at dawn, dreaming of home. Streetlights pour glares like stairs, showerheads washing away the American dirt that's attached to their bodies. These street lamps bloom out of nothing, bearing fruit, the shape of moons, rebutting red giants, red flags, red waves, red letters. These giants are strangers, speaking of flesh and color, with the simplicity of bones, finality of bones, the whiteness of bones, shedding light too late on the inhumanity of humanity, a nightlight for caskets. Pablo III lives in alienation, where no one pays attention, where overlying concrete keeps the growth at bay, outlining the only pathways all the Pablos can walk, so all the green growing outside the homeowner's door doesn't turn brown. When Pablo Pueblo El Tercero watches those walls still being built by politicians, they express real disappointment, awaiting cambio social. I too am a child of Pablo Pueblo, a son of Papa Blades, descendant of the scream, dancing in the streets of misery and hunger on the corner of rage between the avenues of loss and the alleys full of sorrow, searching for loose. 2. I wrote this in the dark. Pocket graffiti. Another Opa book club reject, the kind people barely read for lacking the label of fine white wine. I'm not your moneymaker. I'm freedom and truth, 100% proof. I'm not your uva sit down for enjoyment after being crushed. You did not raise me out of the dirt. You are not allowed to remove my skin. You can't refine my suffering. This is not your grapes of wrath. It's not your fault how difficult it must be for some reflecting under the influence of moonshine. We'll have our day. You are more than a subject on a shelf, more than a shadow behind you that you shed light on. You are brilliant. Todavía. Aquí. The street names may have changed, but we still feel the same after all these years, after all these nights, after all these fights, after all this music, after all these songs, after all this singing, after all these words, I'm still writing. Lo mismo. Aquí cambiaron tal vez los nombres de las calles, pero todavía nos sentimos igual. Nos sentimos igual. Después de todos estos años, después de todas estas noches, después de todas estas discusiones, después de toda esta música, después de todas estas canciones, después de tanto cantar, después de todas estas palabras, sigo escribiendo lo mismo. I'll lighten the mood a little bit. I am a huge Shel Silverstein fan. I read the poems for my son on a regular basis. We take turns. This poem is entitled, When Will the Sidewalks End? Rainwater, give us rainwater. Seep softly into cracks where the asphalt flowers grow. Worryless accepting hardships, rising up to surface as sunlight, as beauty, as being. We sing in the language of flowers because none of us asked to be buried at birth. Raise your songs like suns for blooms, all light, pure life in gardens. Together we'll grow. This next poem I wrote for a good friend of mine named Ellie Smith. He's a talented musician, a vocalist out of Topeka, Kansas. We're artists still trying to find our way in the world, and we'll both get there with grit and perseverance and love and light. So this poem is entitled Singing Her Blues for Ellie Smith. Those stage lights are bright, but never as hot as the 40-watt bulb blazing in the porch light outside your home. That spotlight, that searchlight, that second sun, keeping the day longer than it needs to be. Your front door is as far from backstages as you will ever get. So when you're at a gig and someone in the audience insists you sing your heart out, we'll glance at each other, smiling with our little secrets. You're singing it back in, and that's okay. It's none of their business anyway. I do a lot of musical theater locally in Topeka, and I've done some other places. I wrote a poem about that, about my friends, and sometimes the pressure they feel to constantly perform. This poem is called Actress. Outside your polished stone, wandering in, I notice ornateness draped in the color of an opera house. You look divine in costume, festive in a full room, alone, more seria, full of empty space. I watch you nudging for attention, penitent for lacking interest, so tired of the songs. You need not wear that smile now. I'm not here for the show. I had to put some love poems in here. I wish I could just spend all my time writing love poems, but I feel like some of this work had to be written right now. Sometimes I've been criticized for writing work that's considered political, but what I have to say to that is my story has been politicized, for political gain. This is my life. I'm just sharing my truth. If it makes you feel a certain way, let's investigate that. Let's discuss that. Introspection and self-evaluation is a beautiful thing, and so is connecting over truth. Anyway, here's a love poem. Speaking in tongues. I will hold private revivals. I will pray to anything holy for you. Whenever you walk in with all that salvation awaiting me, I swear to never hush the hallelujahs whispering in my soul's. Oh Lord, I'd speak in silent tongues within her mouth if she'd listen, inhaling gospel after gospel, damning every bit of sin, washing away the guilt we once felt for creating heaven in a land where no one is innocent. Goddess, I just wanted to taste the Yahweh in your mouth, feel the warm forgiveness in your breath, baptize our unborn smiles, turn our lips into Quakers. There is nothing wrong with that. There was never nothing wrong with that. God will understand. This next poem is called Commitment. I have a lot of queer friends and LGBTQIA, and I feel like their love is strong, like because it's love conquers all, right? Like they face more tribulations than most of us when it comes to love. So when I see my friends getting married, that way it's It's just marriage. It's just beautiful. That's it. They're not reinventing love. It's love the way love has always been. It's just without the social construct. So I wrote a poem about that. It's a very short poem. It's called Commitment. On that day, our left and right palms steepled. Our religion was born and God washed. As a congregation of two spoke in the Psalms never read before. One more love poem. This one's called Examples. If the moon shattered and fell out of the sky, I would gather its shards, build a mosaic of night, so you may sleep and dream in peace. If the sun were to cool, I would dance ablaze in a dervish outside your window, so the birds would chirp in the light of false mornings, waking you with love songs. If the sea disappeared, I'd lay mirrors on an ocean bed near the coastline so you could see the blue depths of my devotion and pick it up like sea glass whenever you choose. And if the wind were to stop, I'd whisper in your ear each day to remind you air can still move you. Oh man, we have 15 minutes left. Okay. So the next one I'm going to read is How to Sage. My mother works in healthcare. With everything that's going on right now, I'm looking ahead at mortality, what that means to people. And that's one of the the subtext within this work is life. How do we approach it? How do we see it? When does it end? When does it begin? And this poem it's a little bit about that. So it's entitled How to Sage. It starts with a quote up here. It's a quote from Vogue magazine, online article by Brooke Bob on August 22nd, 2016. She published it at 4 a.m. online. So I just want to make sure that we know who this quote's from. Once you're ready to light your sage, grab the sage as far from the end you're burning as possible. This poem's entitled How to Sage. I will always say sweet and silly things to you like, you are more charming than a room full of hummingbirds. I don't go to church, but know you are everything sacred after Genesis. You turn each day into Sunday. I trust you. We've met once, a long time ago, before the sun and moon were interrupted by the earth. I remember you. I was a freshman. You were a slant of light refracted, poured onto a wall, which folded into a popcorn ceiling, a reflection from my burned CD, covered in colored Sharpie, titled Love Songs, Volume 1. In the future, there will come a night when you'll sneak into our bedroom and burn the sage from our garden. I'll be sleeping away the passing of my mother, dreaming in murmuration after the gusts swallow her ashes. One day, I too will be gone, and the howling of morning will trap the wind inside you. Birdie will notice, then ask if she may smudge. You say yes, but keep the windows shut for a few more days so you and I can take our time. A proper Midwest goodbye. Read a more positive poem now. This poem's entitled For Today. For today. Today, I write to you of promise and truth. I write for now, not of tomorrow nor yesterday. Today, I write to you where age is indifferent, here in our moment, the past having passed, the future uncertain. Today, I write to you as reminder to be present, ever vigilant, self-aware, and care. Today, I write you to say, I will be kind, I will take heed, and I will ask when I'm in need. Today I write to you as a clearing of space, left filled yet empty still, of wounds or wrongs untreated, of any feeling in need of healing, be gone. Today I write to you, I'm here with you in the now. We're running out of time here, so I'm going to read a few more poems. This one is a very special poem to me. I dedicated it to Bob Nell. I've never met the man, but I was watching KCTV News recently, and his story really meant a lot to me, how he gave his life for some children. He was a crossing guard, but it's all explained in the poem here. So it starts with a quote, John 15:13, King James Version. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man may lay down his life for his friends. John 15:13, King James Version. An American hero died today. I've never met this man. He died on February 18th, 2020. Mr. Bob was a crossing guard employed by Wyandotte County. At 8 a.m. near 54th Street and Leavenworth at Christ the King Parish School, he was hit by a black sedan. And I quote, 88-year-old Bob Nell was struck while pushing two little boys, ages 11 and 7, out of the way of an approaching vehicle. My son is 8. This poem's for my son. It's called Hijo, which means son. Your emotions are not red flags. Your tiredness and sadness are not a threat. Your smile does not have to intercept stares from other men walking with their wives quelling their insecurity. Your honesty will be a burden to liars. It is not your fault. You're allowed to be beautiful without the label of lecherous. You can be soft without being weak. You can be weak. You can be powerful and still be kind. Forgive or don't. You can be at peace and not a mystery. You can put down your guard. You can be vulnerable, laugh or cry, or both. You can speak before spoken to. You do not have to say a word. Be silent. Take up space if you want to, or don't. Your silence is not intimidation. Your voice is not aggression. You can sing and dance whenever, wherever. Choose love if you want to, or don't. You are just you, being you, magnificent you, my precious boy. I ask that you never ask for permission to be beautiful. You were born with the right to all your you-ness. This next poem is entitled Same Old News, for Pedro Pitri, who wrote Puerto Rican Obituary. It's one of my favorite poems. It's a New York poet. It's a poem that when Hurricane Maria came, I read at a Speakeasy Poetry open mic in Topeka. Shout out to Speakeasy Poetry Group. Hi, Annette. Hi, Sue Edgerton. Miss you guys a lot. Same old news for Pedro Pitri. We still work. Sometimes we are late. We speak back when insulted. We still work. We take days off. We call into work. We go on strike. We still work 10 days a week, 2 jobs minimum, no overtime, still getting paid for only 5, or even less now. We still work. We work harder, much harder, get tired, show up late, call into work, then return to work, broke and broken. We work and work and work. We work harder, much harder than before. And we die broke. We die owing much more than before. We die more broken. We die much harder. Fuck the national banks. Juan, Miguel, Milagros, Olga, Manuel are still dying. Juan is bribing local senators. Miguel lost the belt. Milagros disappeared. Olga sings of sadness. Manuel left for Broadway. They are still dying. We die broken in hurricanes and earthquakes, sin luz y agua, in wars from gunshots and therapy, traumatized on drugs and alcohol, alone. Emotional and economic depressions are also tropical depressions. Aquí se habla Spanglish all the time. Aquí they put America first. Aquí they throw paper towels at us. Aquí they call us Mexican. Aquí they call everyone immigrant. Aquí we are all the same. Aquí we are all non-white. Aquí we are the only brown. Aquí we are the other. Aquí to be called Latino is to be unwelcomed. So I got time for 2 more poems. So thank you for your time and for joining me today. I'd like to thank Cruz Mapes of 75 Magazine. She put my website together, Humanities Kansas, for always being so good to me. Interurban Art House, you guys are wonderful. Topeka in general, love you. We'll get through this, I promise. This poem is entitled 7 Hours on the Road con los Éxitos. This is for Jimmy Santiago Bacas, one of my favorite poets. 1. I understand you. I too soak in the sun and wish the wind would bless me. I feel those rays on those disciplined and erect palm trees. I am one. I stand alone. My brown skin, husky, scaled bark, my bilingual tongue spinning in the wind like blades. I was on the road between palm trees. I was almost chewed corn husk thrown into the mud. My father's father planted green and yellow bananas. It would start all over again after hurricanes. 2. I was the one they never captured. Still free and greening, spreading words in the wind, mourning how families are imprisoned and separated. Walls mean nothing to me. They will not take me from who I am. I will remain here selling fruit. I am confused today. I hope your poetry isn't timeless, Jimmy. Do you think you were writing Chicano futurism when you wrote immigrants in our own land? Did you travel through time to change the year 2020? Were you trying to save me through the page? Your poetry should never have been prophecy. The ones with dreams in their hearts are now called dreamers. The old men still stare. They still think Mexicans are stealing their jobs. We still aren't giving the children a chance to live. I want to give my son a better chance to live. All I have done is survive. Another poet from the barrio working through the darkness. 3. There were over 1,000 earthquakes in Puerto Rico and no one healed. Juan Jesus, Gina, and Johanna say, todo bien, gracias a Dios, sin luz y agua. I'm not. Even my songs of survival sound borrowed and out of tune. I listen to oldies on AM radio station where pastors play interpreters because they know heaven is a foreign land. I am on the road bartering poems for empathy. Some people cry and some people argue after I read those poems. I don't know which is wrong or right to feel about. 4. Today, it was windy when I drove through the Flint Hills towards Mankato Public Library. I passed the Pawnee Village. I passed the Big Blue River. I passed the Little Blue River. And I passed the Republican River. I was afraid of the gust pushing me sideways. I remembered the sound of Hurricane Fran, how it slowly eroded sentiments of safety. I remembered how quiet the Coquis were that night, how all the palm leaves died in silence laying on the dirt. I thought about the seashells and their hollowness, how we've mistaken their songs for soft, cool ocean waves and gentle sea breezes, but they are mimicking the howls of windstorms. I remembered when Hurricane Fran landed in the United States and immediately lost all of its forward momentum, becoming a tropical storm and then a tropical depression, returning to the ocean after falling apart, causing loss and devastation as it headed further north towards Canada. The only thing keeping it together, a name it never asked for. 5. My friends joked they would move to Canada after the last election. They remain here in Kansas with me. I turned the AM radio off, no longer listen to the COVID-19 news, elderlies dying alone in quarantine around the world. The old feels alone and isolated here in frontier counties. My abuela died alone in Puerto Rico. I dreamt of a funeral before I was told I didn't get to say goodbye. Now I'm speeding on Highway 36. Social distancing is living as the other. Shelter in place is the life of the undocumented. Racism is the disease that is spreading. 6. I turned the CD player on and Willy Colon's El Día de mi Suerte is playing. I thought about La Voz, Hector Lavoe, and how the same song can sound so different but just as sad. I thought about Mark Anthony playing Hector Lavoe in El Cantante. I wish I was dancing in Contra La Corriente with Cochita and Chispa in Kansas City. I looked outside the driver's side window. I was afraid I was lost. There were wind turbines spinning their blades. They were the only signs of progress out here. I was on the road for hours. I still had a long way to go. I changed the music and Los Panchos Quizás, Quizás, Quizás started playing. I sighed, slowed down and kept driving. And Brelo played next. I sang the only words I could remember. We're a couple minutes over, but I'm going to read one last poem. This is the titular poem to the collection. It's Un Mango Grows in Kansas. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you guys joining me for National Poetry Month today, and I'm really excited to get some of these poems to you right now, and the rest of them in the book. If you're interested, go to huascarmedina.com, and they'll be there for you to pre-order. We should have them out May 1st. Spartan Press, Jason Reberg. Love you, man. Seriously. Un Mango Grows in Kansas. You have found me, hidden in a wheat field within a husk of corn, growing for you. I am ready. Pick me. Hold me in your hands, remove my skin, peel away my color, find that I am tender, soft, and sweet. Eat of me until there's nothing, and your mouths are empty and your bellies filled. What is left will live as seed to grow again, brighter, hardened, and less bitter. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. message me. Let me know if you have anything to say. We can continue this conversation one-on-one. So have a good day. Stay blessed. Stay well and well-read. Interurban House, thank you. Humanities Kansas, thank you. Cruz Mapes at 785, thank you. Love you guys. Take care.
We hope you enjoyed these performances and invite you to help us continue to support local artists by donating at interurbanarthouse.org. There, as well as on our Facebook and Instagram under Interurban Art House, you can learn more about the various artists and instructors featured in our Art House at Your House series.